Hello everyone, my name is Malikan Ratnayaka and I am from the Faculty of Information Technology of Monash University, Australia. Now I will present our research on spatial monitoring of cross-pollination in cropping systems through multi-point honeybee tracking. In this research, we looked at how we can use digital pollination monitoring and tracking technologies to build spatial models of honeybees to better understand cross-pollination. First, I will present the motivation behind our research and its importance. Globally, pollinators affect 35% of the agricultural land and play a key role in food production. They help to pollinate over 87 food crops, including berries and apple. The annual market value of pollination is estimated to be between 235 to 577 billion US dollars. In most instances, the crop yield is directly correlated with the pollinator population size. Research estimates that proper pollination management can increase the crop yield by a further 25%. This will contribute immensely to ensure global food security. In this research, we focused on building spatial models for cross-pollination in strawberries through multi-point honeybee tracking. Strawberry is a high-value crop where honeybees are the primary pollinator. Cross-pollination happens when pollinators move pollen between strawberry flowers of different varieties. Research showed that cross-pollination improves the quality and the marketability of strawberry fruits. Therefore, higher rate of cross-pollination will result in a better quality fruit set. Because of this, farmers implement different techniques to encourage cross-pollination. One of those methods is planting different varieties of strawberries in adjacent rows to encourage cross-pollination. We can use spatial models based on honeybee movement to track and model the assess cross-pollination in a farming setup. Next, I will present an overview of modeling approaches that can be used to model cross-pollination. These modeling approaches can be broadly categorized into two as bottom-up modeling and top-down modeling approaches. For the current context, I will define the characteristics associated with each approach as follows. Bottom-up modeling approach focuses on individual level modeling, while top-down modeling approach focuses on system-level modeling. So the bottom-up approach is usually a grid or individual based, while the top-down approach is integrated state-level based. Next, let's look at how these approaches can be used in building spatial models for cross-pollination. In the bottom-up approach, we start with the individual bee movement. Here we can use empirical data to code parameters such as turn angles and step lengths to individual bee movement. The bees in the simulation will then move based on coded parameters to forage and pollinate flowers. We can calculate the statistical probability of cross-pollination from the simulation. Finally, the calculated probabilities can be compared with empirical data to calibrate the model to better reflect the real world. Next, if you look at the same problem through the top-down approach, here we start from the probability of cross-pollination calculated using empirical data. The bees in the simulation will then adjust their movements to achieve these cross-pollination targets. On the other hand, it might not be necessary for the individual bee movements to be calculated in the top-down approach if you only wants to answer about a high-level phenomenon such as the probability of cross-pollination. But in both the approaches, we need a lot of empirical data to either code bee movements or verify our models. Currently, there is no such system capable of automatically collecting this data in the real-world agriculture setups. This is because tracking honeybees in real world is a very difficult task. In this research, we will be using multi-point honeybee tracking system to collect this bee movement data necessary for building spatial models of cross-pollination. Then we'll be looking at how this data can be better inform the modeling process. Next, I will present a brief overview of this multi-point tracking system and its implementation. So the multi-point tracking system consists of 3 stages. In the first stage, video data required for tracking are collected using camera units deployed in the farm. Next, then these videos are automatically processed to extract honeybee movement tracks. And finally, these tracks are used to conduct different analysis related to pollination, including cross-pollination. Now I will present the details related to data collection. We collected data at the Sunny Ridge Strawberry Farm in Victoria, Australia. Sunny Ridge Farm plants strawberries under weather-protected polytunnels. We implemented 9 camera units across 9 locations, covering edges and middles of polytunnels as shown in this map. We continuously recorded movement of honeybees and other insects using edge computing-based camera units that consist of Raspberry Pi cameras. So each camera covered an area of 6 centimeters by 40 centimeters, and we collected data for 4.5 hours each day for 6 days. Next, we automatically process the recorded videos using custom designed automated algorithm. Our methods use a hybrid detection algorithm consisting of a deep learning detection model and a foreground-background segmentation model to detect and track untracked insects in flowers in complex and dynamic environments. This enables it to be used in a semi-controlled environment such as strawberry polytunnels. Also, it automatically monitors and records insect flower interactions required for pollination monitoring. So this is a video of honeybees being tracked in strawberry polytunnels amidst the changes in the environment. Next, I will present the results of this study. So these are plots showing the honeybee tracks recorded at 9 data collection points over 6 days. The blue lines in the plot represent honeybee tracks, and the bar charts above the plot shows the number of honeybee tracks recorded at each data collection point. And here are some statistics related to the collected data. We recorded 1,805 honeybee tracks across all data collection points, and the total track length was about 1.5 kilometers. The total duration of recorded tracks were around 7.6 hours. We also recorded around 3,300 flower visits. And the area covered by all 9 cameras was 2.2 square meters. But if you look at this area as a percentage, it is only 1.8% of the strawberry row. But we plan to expand this in the future to cover a large part of the farm area. And it is important to note that the collection of these kind of high-resolution spatio-temporal data related to honeybee movement was not possible before with conventional methods of honeybee monitoring. So this data will provide novel insights to honeybee behavior and enable building better spatial models. Next, I will present how these data can be used in building spatial simulation models related to pollination and a few insights for simulation models. So, as I mentioned before, row following behavior of pollinators directly affect the cross-pollination. Previous research conducted using visual observations has identified that honeybees tend to follow rows, minimizing the possibility of cross-pollination. But our results show that 85% of recorded honeybee tracks were not row following, and indeed they were row crossing, facilitating the cross-pollination process. So these observations are very different to our understanding of honeybee behavior related to cross-pollination. And in this plot, the white arrows show the general directionality of honeybees at each location. Next, I will present the variation in turn angles and step length which explains this behavior. However, it's important to note that the honeybee behavior might vary from one cropping system to another. So here we compare the turn angles of bees recorded through camera observations against that used in simulation models. So this is a frequency histogram of turn angles where y-axis is showing the log frequency and the x-axis is showing the turn angle. So as shown here, most of the times bees maintain their directionality without turning. Now, if you look at the simulation models, they use a grid of probabilities to model turn angles. So this diagram on the right shows the turning probability of bees modeled relative to the current heading of an artificial bee following a biased random walk. These values were calculated from results of Paddington and Buckerway. Now, if we compare these probabilities with empirical observations, we get the following lines shown in red. So this shows that honeybees maintain their directionality while moving irrespective of the row structure. That means row direction will not influence the honeybee movement in strawberry cropping systems. This is an important phenomenon growers can use when designing agricultural setup. So as I mentioned before, however, this behavior might not change from crop to crop or environment to environment. Next, we look at the step length of honeybee movement. This plot shows the frequency histogram related to honeybee step length, where y-axis shows the log frequency and x-axis is related to the step length in millimeters. We also plotted the density of probability related to step length distribution and it is shown in red. These simulation models usually use Levy-Flight distribution to model step lengths. Levy-Flight distribution has a higher frequency of shorter steps and a lower frequency of long steps as shown in the plot on the right. And by comparing these two plots, we can see that data collected from honeybee tracks also follows a Levy distribution, which is used to model honeybee movements in simulations. And finally, we looked at the interflower movement of honeybees. This figure shows a honeybee track which forages in 3 flowers indicated with circles. Then we compare the interflower distance against the actual flight distance which honeybees take to move between flowers. The flight distance versus the interflower distance for all recorded 3,300 flower visits were plotted here. As shown from the plot, the actual distance traveled by honeybees is more than the interflower distance. So this phenomenon can be incorporated to simulation models, which will be helpful in understanding the flower selection and decision-making strategies of honeybees. So these are a few insights from multi-point honeybee tracking that can be used when building spatial models for simulation of honeybee behavior. And to summarize, in this research, we used a multi-point pollination monitoring system to inform the spatial modeling of cross-pollination in cropping systems. Our results show that honeybees do not follow rows while foraging in strawberry polytunnels. They maintain their directionality while foraging, and finally, they use Levy-Flight strategies in foraging movements. Thank you very much for listening, and your feedback is much appreciated.